Yeah, they have the
That
link.
it,
All right, we're
okay,
live.
cool.
So don't say anything bad, Tim. We'll allow some time to let people trickle in, but welcome to everyone who's coming on. See on YouTube we have 2 people watching.
Okay.
Whew,
If you told
that
it, they
was
would.
a wild day, Tim. Not only that, not just game, but just a wild afternoon.
Well, yeah, with the whole delay, the 2+ hour delay, shades of Michigan State in 2017, except I think we were looking better and in a better position score wise than we were for that one.
Certainly. I think. I mean, we don't have to get into Michigan State discussion, but obviously, Penn State certainly had the score. People who flat out just like blamed the delay. I mean, I don't know. It was pretty early in that game where a lot of things could have happened, but yeah, just it's weird because earlier in the week it for sure looked like that this was going to be delayed at some point, and then I checked yesterday and I checked even today at like 11:45, and it didn't say it was supposed to start raining until 5 o'clock in Morgantown. So obviously, when it's that hot and humid, things can happen. So
Yeah,
let me just give
thankfully
out
it didn't go
one
on
more
too
tweet.
much longer.
No, we are live on YouTube. All right, let's give 30 more seconds. Allow some people to trickle in.
All right.
We'll get started here. We should do for a trickle in period. We'll have to think of something to talk about. Maybe we'll do like trivia or something for the first 2 minutes. We'll do three Penn State trivia questions. We'll do it for next week.
Okay.
All right. I think we're ready to go. All right. Welcome to BSD post-game show live on YouTube. That was a hell of a game. I'm your host, Patrick Kerbler, here with Tim Aiden. Penn State wins 34-12, right? 34-12? Yes, yep. 34-12. Wasn't the Auburn game
going on there,
Wasn't the hold on. What do you like better? This? That? We'll go back to this. Wasn't the score of the Auburn game 41-12? So it would have been nice if we could have got that 41-12 to make it just like Auburn from 2022, just because I feel like going into this game, a lot of people were saying, what did this game remind you of? Was it Auburn 2022? Was it Purdue 2021? Was it Wisconsin 2021? Or rather, Purdue 2022? But in the end, just like we saw for that Auburn game, Penn State dominates. Tim, I'll let you kind of go where you want to go with this. I feel like obviously we'll talk about Drew, we'll talk about Trey Wallace, we'll talk about Andy Kotelnicki, we'll talk about the defense, we'll talk about everything. Trust me, we'll certainly get to everything. But what are kind of your big picture, main thoughts coming out of that game? Because I think for most Penn State fans, I mean that was a very fun 6 hours with the rain delay in there as well.
Well, I don't smoke, but I wouldn't mind having a cigarette after that beatdown. Pretty satisfying after just for the past week or so reading all the crap talking on social media from West Virginia fans, and I mean not all. I should say I was on this Joey Foster's show, West Virginia show, on the Boys of College Football, and he's a pretty good, reasonable fan. But there are a lot of people, of course, like just crap talking, saying they win by 2 touchdowns, that Drew Aller sucks. Our running game is better than your running game, blah, blah, blah. Garrett Green's Heisman Trophy, dark horse. And I don't know. I don't know if you did it, but I hate watched the Pat McAfee show yesterday for a little bit when he was in Morgantown. And I mean, it's kind of hysterical, like watching how they had to pretty much mute for like 30 seconds at a time because that crowd is mostly students that are all just chanting F Penn State, and it's just satisfying to deliver a absolute beatdown of a win here, which I wasn't quite predicting. As you know, I said 31-17. I thought it would be close for 3 quarters, and then Penn State would pull away. But it's not quite how it worked out. And I'm sure, like I said, we'll get into all this stuff about Andy Kotelnicki's offense, which I don't know about you, breath of fresh air, man.
Definitely. Let's set the stage and kind of recap the game, how it went. I think the vibes and flow wise. That first quarter, not great for Penn State. I mean, not great for West Virginia either. Both teams were really struggling with snaps. West Virginia had, I think, at least 2, if not 3, if I remember correctly, some botched snaps. Penn State obviously had that botched snap that cost them a turnover, but they got the ball right back because of West Virginia botched snap. I think West Virginia also had a fumble as well. Penn State almost had a fumble with Bo Prabila, although that might have been in the second quarter. But either way, point being that it certainly was a sloppy game, and you could feel like that nervous energy to start. Penn State, quietly and slowly but surely got into their game. Even defensively, right? West Virginia had a couple drives where they were picking up third downs, they were getting first downs, they were towards the red zone, but Penn State defense gets a big fourth down stop and gives Penn State the ball back, and Penn State went off in that second quarter, or especially towards the end of the first quarter. I know at some point I was live tweeting for BSD, and I tweeted, I think it was as the first quarter was coming to a close, that hey, it'd be nice if Drew Aller would complete a pass here or two, and he certainly did that. He finished the game with only 11 completions and only 17 attempts, but 216 yards. 199 of them were in that first half, and the large majority, I think 160 or so, were in that second quarter. And he had 3 touchdowns. So let's start there, and we'll get to bits and pieces of everybody. Thoughts on Drew? Because Tim, you and I last year after this West Virginia game, I'll only speak for myself. We were ready to crown him. He was it, baby.
Yeah.
He's our baby. But once again, 1 year later, we are back in the same exact spot where, Drew wasn't asked to do a whole ton, especially in the second half. But man, was he very, very good when he needed to be. So what are your thoughts on Drew and his performance today, and kind of just the outlook of the season with him having this performance?
Well, I'll pump the brakes on the Drew Aller Heisman talk for a moment, but it was overall just a very satisfying performance from him. I know got off to a bit of a rocky start. He had the fumble, which wasn't his fault really. It was a bad snap. But you kind of saw him getting at it with the ref after that fumble. Initially, I think he was complaining about, I think supposedly one of the safeties in West Virginia was clapping, to simulate hiking of the ball signal. So I think he was mad about that. And then I think he had early on in the game, he had a throw over the middle, which should have been a completion and a first down, but he put it a little bit behind his receiver, so the timing wasn't very good, and the receiver wasn't able to bring it in. But then, as the game went on, as Penn State calmed down, he got more, and then Kotelnicki, given that he's actually a good offensive coordinator who knows how to adjust when his guy is looking a little bit flustered, gave him some nice makeable throws to Trey Wallace. And then, one of them ended up being a touchdown strike, which I think really opened up his confidence, really got him into a rhythm, got him going. Of course, he hit Trey, another time right before the end of half, and then he threw another one to Katron Allen in between that. So,
that first touchdown throw to Trey, rather, it was I was going to say, on one hand, obviously, he was open, but it was one of those throws that you have to trust. Drew had to trust what his eyes were showing him and what his instincts were telling him, that when he makes that break, that West Virginia safety isn't going to be cutting there, and that Trey's going to be ready for the ball. And he put it exactly where it needed to be. I think that probably hits Trey right in his neck if his hands don't catch it. But I think that throw in particular, he had a couple completions before that, obviously, but that throw in particular, I think really helped him settle in. So
that's a throw that if I was playing the College Ball 25 video game, that would have been an interception.
Yeah. Or one of those, if it is a completion, it's like, ooh, I read that perfectly, because it was just one of those, it opened up, and it all went well. Yeah, definitely don't want to say Drew for Heisman, and there's still obviously a long season to go. And Penn State's issue And Drew's issue last year was not that he played poorly against the West Virginias or against the Iowas or against the Marylands, or it was that against Michigan, Ohio State, which granted, two of the best defenses in the country last season. That's where he struggled. So obviously the barometer for which Drew will be graded will be, the Ohio State games and stuff like that. But was certainly just good to see him, obviously a lot of the throws were very nice. He had that out throw to Trey Wallace, which was just like right on the money. Obviously the second touchdown to Trey Wallace, which was also just a beautiful ball and catch by Trey. But I think what was most impressive for me with Drew and something that I was really hoping for was, one, I thought that I know we like joke about the babyface Drew Aller, but like honestly, him just like hitting puberty and like becoming more a man and becoming more, I don't want to say comfortable with his body, but slimming down, not having that baby fat. I believe he's around like 230 right now, as opposed to last season where he was more in the 240, 245 area. And I think that showed with how he was able to move. Just his general awareness in the pocket. I think he did a great job of picking and choosing when to tuck it and run, and picked up a couple pivotal third downs that kept drives alive. And just his general awareness in the pocket too. He had that one play where it was I think like a 3rd and 8 or something. He did pick up the first down. He only got 4 yards, but just, was able to navigate the pocket and at least keep the play alive. So I think those are the steps that you're looking from Drew, because that he has the arm talent, and obviously being a younger player, you just hope that, that awareness and those instincts eventually clicks. So yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what I was expecting out of Drew coming into this game. Like when I thought of how this game is going to play out, I obviously didn't think this, but yeah, I mean, you really can't ask for a better performance from Drew. And let's kind of switch gears here and talk about Andy Kotelnicki, because I think he deservedly should get a lot of the praise here. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, right? Like just the difference between Jurčić and Kotelnicki, and not to say that Jurčić, I think last season was extremely poor, but obviously Jurčić wasn't always as frustrating as he was last year. But what were some things that you saw from Kotelnicki that makes you excited? Because I mean, Penn State Twitter is buzzing right now with Kotelnicki love.
I mean, I think the stats tell it all. They were showing it up on the Fox broadcast a couple times. I think last year we had the whole season. We had like, I think, 18. I don't know how many explosive plays, but it's a really small amount. In today's game alone, they had about 6 or 7 of them. So by explosive plays, we mean run plays that go for 10 or more yards, or pass plays that go for 15 or more yards. And you saw Drew Aller hit Trey Wallace for a 50-yard touchdown. You saw him hit Katron Allen had a 20-yard touchdown grab, and then of course Nicky Singleton had a 40-yard scamper to start coming out of the weather delay on the very first drive for Penn State of the second half, which really, I mean, put West Virginia behind the 8 ball, because West Virginia's probably thinking, okay, we got to stop here, get the ball back, score a touchdown, like it's game on. But Singleton effectively crushed those hopes and dreams.
Without looking, what was Nick Singleton's longest rush last year?
I think it wasn't very long. I think it was like less than 20 yards. It was like 16, 17.
Right around there. 24 yards was his longest rush. He obviously had that the 40-yard carry, which was, I believe, for a touchdown. And then he had another one that I can't find it right now. It's not popping up. It was certainly another 30-plus yarder. So just in one day or one game, we saw some of that old Nick Singleton. But continue on with Kotelnicki and some of the things.
Just the way Kotelnicki schemes things, and the way, especially, he uses a lot of motion, a lot of deception. I mean, how many times do we see Drew Aller and Bo Pribula on the field at the same time? I mean, I started to lose count at a certain point. It's probably at least 6, 7 times. And to be honest, I thought actually Drew looked like a much better runner than Bo did for most of that game. But I'll say Bo really redeemed himself when he threw that touchdown strike to Tyler Warren for Penn State's last score of the game, which, I mean, I don't think anybody was anticipating that happening. I mean,
no,
especially West Virginia's defense.
And that's the beauty of that. I mean, I was watching with friends, and I kind of even said like, why don't they just take Drew off on when Bo comes in? Because like you have to sub anyway. Like take Drew out, put another, put Rapelier in, or put another tight end, or whatever. But it's just because of think of all those wrinkles that we're gonna see with the Bo package, and I can promise you, at some point we will see a Bo snap that goes back to Drew, that then is thrown back to Bo, and just all the crazy things that you can do when you have two QBs out there, and that's just like what we saw before. It's the smallest wrinkle, but you saw how effective that was. That just chip away with these Bo runs and these Bo RPOs, and eventually you do get that pass where if you're as talented as Bo is, that you can make a 10-yard pass to Tyler Warren, who gets into the end zone. So yeah, I mean,
I
just
thought the play calling was solid
yeah.
overall. The only thing I would question was going for 2 after the first touchdown. I mean, it's a little. I'm not sure what Kolnicki was thinking doing that.
I don't even necessarily. That's one of those because the TV didn't do a great job of showing it, because I think they were showing replays, but I think Penn State lined up for the point after, and it was like one of those like, oh,
Shift out of it, kind of.
we liked the look that we had. I'm sure. Well, I like to think that somebody asked James in the post-game press conference, which is either going on now or will be going on soon. But I imagine that it will get they like the look that they had. But yeah, that's certainly, uh, you know, I think everyone was a little upset with that call, just because you have the momentum there, and I know momentum isn't necessarily like always a real thing, but just early in the game like that, take your points and you know just move on. But
Although West Virginia did a nice job one-upping in that department late in the game when they scored a touchdown and made it 27-12, and instead of just kicking the extra point and making it 14-point game, somehow decided go for 2. Now maybe they were thinking, okay, if we can get 2 touchdowns, then we can just kick a game-winning extra point. They probably figured they didn't like their chances in an overtime against Penn State. But
yeah, I think it's almost similar to last year whenever Penn State they scored that touchdown against Ohio State and just went for 2, because it's like, oh well, you're probably not going to win anyway, so might as well try to win in regulation. But anyway, how about let's talk about the refs for a second. And I'm not a big like complain about the refs guy, but well, 2 things. One, Penn State is very lucky that the Trey Wallace touchdown grab wasn't reviewed, because I don't know if you saw it, but it definitely looks like he bobbles. And now, granted, it was called a touchdown on the field, and how they were calling reviews today, I think that probably stays a touchdown. But just and I don't know if we've had this discussion before. My issue with replay is, and granted they didn't review it, but it's like, if we have replay and we use it, we go through it, why like just make the call that makes the most sense? Like, so Penn State is on defense. It's 4th and 1. West Virginia goes for, this is earlier in the game, I think it's 13-3 at that point in the second quarter, and West Virginia, like, very clearly, like, can we say with 100% certainty? Okay, maybe not, but 90% certainty, 85% certainty, they do not get that first down call. And I was live tweeting from BSD, and I right away tweeted, they do not get it, because I thought for sure that was not a first down. They give him the spot, and then they go to replay, and it very clearly shows that he did not get it, and they keep it. I just, it's that, like, that's the frustrating stuff to me. Like, it's one
the
thing
same
to
with the
not,
touchdown they scored
yeah,
later on. I mean, clearly C.D. Donaldson's arm is down before the goal line. It should have been a 4th and goal from like
yeah.
6-inch line or something.
We got an update from James Franklin on Drew Aller's running ability. We call him Lamar Allar, or Lamar Aller. I think it makes more sense to say Lamar Allar. I don't know about that. I don't know if he's that type of runner, but no, certainly some strides made when it came to running for Drew. He had 6 carries for 44 yards, so good for 7.3 yards per carry. I don't think any sacks either, right? Did West Virginia have any sacks in the game?
I don't believe they did. No, Drew was able to escape the pressure.
Yeah, he did a nice job.
He ripped off some nice runs to move the chains on some 3rd and like mid situations.
All right, let's talk about 2 more players offensively, and we'll real quick, thoughts on the offensive line? I think overall, like, pretty good. Obviously, we were just saying, like, didn't give up too many sacks. Felt like Drew usually had, time in the pocket to make throws. Penn State did like struggle to consistently run the ball. Singleton averaged 8.8 yards per carry, but a lot of that was just on 2 carries. I think he had like 75 yards just on those 2 carries. But Katron Allen, 10 carries for 20 yards. Cam Wallace only carried the ball the second team offensive line in, but I think West Virginia was obviously they were allowing Drew to beat them with his arm. But general thoughts on the offensive line? Did you see anything out there that, change your perspective on kind of what we thought they were as, like around a top 5 unit in the Big Ten, but maybe not the best?
I know there's concern going in the game about having to replace 3 starters, including, Old Fashioned, who a top 10 NFL draft pick. But I thought overall they did a good job. Obviously I think West Virginia was focused on trying to take away the run. So that's why, in part, why they weren't able to just pick up like chunks of yard, except for a couple plays where Anakonogi schemed up something nice, which gave Singleton some open space. But I think there's something to stop the run, but pass protection overall was fairly good. I mean, Drew typically had enough time in the pocket to scan the field, make his throw, and even the times when the pressure was starting to get to Drew, he was able to escape. And I say the linemen did a good job, like improvising with their blocking. I remember there was one play, I think it was 3rd and long. It didn't end up going for a first down, but what could have been like maybe a 5-yard loss via sack, like Drew kind of runs one direction and runs in the other, and his lineman, I forget who it was, but he like improvised, picks up his man, and Drew's able to go like he came close. He was maybe like 3 yards shy of the first down, but making a tremendous miracle first down. But stuff like that was encouraging to see. Now, of course, this isn't the toughest defense they're going to face this season, but it's good to see they weren't overwhelmed going up against a team like West Virginia's defense.
A solid defensive line, certainly a passable one. And just for the record with the offensive line, I think there was, maybe a bit of expectation about like more of a rotation than we would usually see, but it did seem like, and again, we'll have to check the snap counts as they come out, and we'll have that on BSD later this week. But it was mostly all Drew Shelton at left tackle, Vega at left guard, Nick Dawkins at center, Sal Wormley at right guard, and Anthony Donko at right tackle. We saw a little. I noticed Cooper Cousins got in for a play or two here and there before the route was on, but I think he was the only one as far as rotation. I don't think we saw too much of JB Nelson or too much of Nolan Rucci before things got out of hand. Which again can change as the season goes along, but certainly seems like Penn State is pretty solidified with those 5 guys as their starters moving forward. Let's kind of stick with that just because we were talking about the running game. Nick Singleton, I think, as far as guys that had a lot of hype and expectation last year, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but didn't have a lot of big runs last year. And in this game, he had 2, what would be categorized as explosive runs. So he finishes with 13 carries for 114 yards. As Tim mentioned earlier, he had that long touchdown run after the rain delay, which, I think for all Penn State fans, even though we were up 20-6 coming out of that delay, you certainly want to, come out there and certainly get some points on the board. So it's good to see that. Thoughts on Singleton? Because, I think so much of what was talked about last year was, okay, maybe Yurchich didn't do the best job of getting him the ball in space. And that was something we were excited about with Kotelnicki. But I think there was also the idea that, okay, maybe he's not as explosive as he was. Maybe he put too much weight on. What did you see from Nick today that makes you excited moving forward?
Well, I guess he seems to still have some of that explosiveness despite putting on weight. And actually, I think he weighs more than Katron Allen does now.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. But that 40-yard touchdown scamper and then his 30+ yard run, which could have gone for a touchdown as well. Kind of say it all. He's still got it. And I'd say he didn't see much of him in the passing game today, but that certainly doesn't mean we're not going to see it in the future. Maybe it just wasn't there today for him, but I did kind of like, we ran a little option play early on. I think, I don't know if it was Perbuel or Auer who was the quarterback, but
It was
run a little
Purdue.
option and then pitched it to him last second, and he was able to pick up the first down. I don't think we ended up doing that drive, but you see little things like that, and at least now opponents have to consider that when they look at game film on Penn State. Like, there's a lot of different ways you have to defend them, and that's the whole thing. Like, goes back to Kolnicki's been doing it. He's this team is not so predictable like it was perhaps last year.
I mean, case in point, West Virginia gets a field goal, brings it to 13-6. Penn State tries a run with Singleton, but yet hurries up to the line when I think in past years, knowing that Penn State's getting the ball back, all right, we tried one play with Singleton, it doesn't work. Instead, Penn State hurries to the line, and they just literally do, just like on College Football 25, what we all do when there's 15 seconds left before the end of the half. You just do 4 verts, and Amari Evans definitely gets off with a little bit of a shove, but Drew completes that for, what was that, at 55? I think it was 55 yards.
55,
like
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a bomb to Amari
I mean,
Evans.
it was kind of, you can look at it as a makeup non-call for
the 4th down conversion.
The horrible spot they gave on that 4th down conversion, which led to a West Virginia field goal. So
here's my take, and I just want to get back to Kolnicki and just the offense in general in a second. But here's my take when it comes to refs. When they mess up calls that go against my team, that's bad, and I hate them, and I hope that they can no longer referee games and they should be fired. When they miss stuff like that, that's just part of the game. Like, those things happen. So I just want to be clear on that. I'm pretty consistent on my take that refs bad when they do bad things to my team, but when it helps my team when they're bad, that's okay. So just want to clear up any confusion. But no, I think that's the thing with Singleton and Kolnicki, is that you need him, Singleton in particular, compared to Katron, as great as Katron is. Singleton's more of your explosive guy. And Kolnicki put such an emphasis on explosive plays, what he was doing at Kansas. And, Singleton's play today was, just showcasing that. And same thing with that throw to Amari Evans. You have a guy that, runs a 4-3 and he has single coverage. Then you have Drew Aller, who can, bomb it deep like that. Like, let him rip it. And you see why you do that. I can't believe that we made it 28 minutes into this podcast, and we have mentioned him, but the most important thing on this game, obviously, Kolnicki being the guy that we all hoped and thought he was. He is our savior. Drew looking as good as he did, certainly very important. Like, quarterback, completely get it, the most important position on the field. But Trey Wallace, maybe being a bona fide number 1 wide receiver, I think part of the issue with him last year was that he just wasn't ever consistently healthy. He would, get dinged up, miss a couple games, come back, get dinged up, miss a couple games, or, not just be able to play to his full capabilities. Always flashed some things, but man, he was fantastic today. He was, other than Amari Evans, was the only wide receiver to catch any passes. And granted, Penn State, certainly didn't have to open the whole playbook after that second half. But I think when, you talk about top takeaways from today and what are some important things that can kind of change the outlook of the season, the same way that in 2020, Jahan Dotson coming out and being like, oh yeah, he's just like, he's an all Big Ten dude now. He's that type of player. I'm not saying we're there with Harrison Wallace, Trey Wallace yet, but that was, I don't want to say it's better than anything Keandre Lambert-Smith ever did, because I don't mean it as like a slight to Keandre Lambert-Smith, who also had some fantastic games for Penn State, but it certainly was a glimpse into being the type of wide receiver that Penn State needs. Like, Drew can be as good as he is, but you're going to need some help. And you saw in a lot of those throws, the second touchdown pass, that was an NFL touchdown if he actually didn't bobble the ball, because he got 2 feet in. So I feel like we heard a lot about, Trey Wallace and Liam Clifford heading into this game. Not as much on Liam Clifford today, but what were your thoughts on Trey Wallace? Because I think that is one of the more underrated, important storylines coming out of today.
You talk about showing up on the big stage. That's precisely what he did today. Went over, I'm looking at the stat line here, 117 yards on 5 catches, 2 touchdowns, but yeah, see him just make clutch catch after clutch catch, and of course, shout out to Amari Evans, had the nice deep ball catch, which set up a touchdown to Wallace right before the half. But it's definitely refreshing to have what seems to be a reliable number one go-to receiver in Wallace. And yeah, I know we didn't see much of Liam Clifford. Hopefully, maybe we'll get a little more involved next week or, going down the line. You would like to see more of the receiving core besides Wallace and Evans be able to get involved. On that note, did Julian Fleming even play? I'm trying to remember if I even saw him on the field, but I don't think they ever threw in his direction.
I don't think he had any throws to him. He definitely did play though, but yeah, no throws for Julian. Which again, I think as much as and he'll play an important part at some point this season. Obviously, I mean, like you were just saying, like it can't just always be Harrison Wallace or Trey Wallace, but yeah, just kind of how the game went today. That you had a lot of West Virginia wasn't game planning against Trey Wallace; they were game planning against Nick Singleton and Kane Charnell in the running attack. So, I think for Drew, when you have those one-on-one matchups, you're going to go to the guy that you feel most confident in, which you clearly saw was Trey Wallace and a little bit of Tyler Warren. Although I think even he had a quiet day, three receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown. Certainly a good day, but I think if you would have said, I don't know, at least for me, one of my predictions, 5 things I know, was that no wide receiver will have over 50 receptions, which I can pretty confidently say, unless Trey Wallace gets hurt, I think that he's going to eclipse that mark pretty easily, considering he's already, part of the way there with 5 receptions today. But yeah, any other thoughts offensively? I feel like we hit basically everybody. A lot of 2 tight end sets. I think at some point we had a 2 running back, 3 tight end set, but it wasn't like it wasn't a goal line package. It was Luke Reynolds and Andrew Rappelier and Tyler Warren split out wide. So any other thoughts offensively that really stuck out to you that we didn't hit?
I mean, really just my final thoughts on the offense was, a great debut for Andy Kolnick. I mean, we obviously were very excited to have him on staff, but also knew we should temper expectations a bit because it's the first game of live action against an actual opponent instead of just playing against themselves. But it was hard to have asked for a better performance. Really, the explosive plays are what got me excited. It gets me excited for the rest of the season. I think there's a lot more to what is under Coach K's sleeve, and I'm excited to see what they draw up against future opponents, especially as we get into the heart of Big Ten play.
So certainly all good, or mostly all good for Penn State's offense. I think as far as judging just by expectations going in, you couldn't have asked for a better performance. So let's talk a little bit about the defense. They only gave up that 1 touchdown in the 4th quarter, which again could have been, maybe if they held them on a couple other 4th downs, so they very well could have held them on that 4th down if the touchdown had gotten overturned. But I'll leave it to you and kind of you can get the discussion where it goes. But general thoughts on the defense: were you impressed? Were you not impressed? I mean, I don't think you weren't not impressed, but what do you think of the defense? Because I think despite the fact that they only let up 12 points, it was a little break but don't bendy, which you don't love.
Well, it's a little Tom Allen is not Manny Diaz. He's not going to be quite
bend but
as
don't break. Sorry, bend but don't break.
Bend but don't break. Yeah,
yeah. Thank you.
He's a little more bend but don't break compared to Manny Diaz, who was just like, I'm going to bring 8 guys to the line and just blitz your ass all day long, or at least act like I'm going to blitz your ass all day long. But I think he's also, I wouldn't say he's Tom Bradley either, who's, the epitome of bend but don't break. There was some aggressiveness in there. But I'll say they definitely clamped up pretty well whenever West Virginia started to get in the red zone, and just really did a great job of, really the whole game did a great job of not allowing that run game. They didn't allow Garrett Green to rip off any huge gains of his legs. I mean, that was a big, that was one of my X factors actually. Yes, we have a post every Friday that I do called X Factors. And one of them was, who would have the better day running the ball, and turns out it was Penn State by a mile. They had 222 net yards rushing compared to only 85 for West Virginia. And I'm pulling up look up Green stats here. He ran 10 times for 5 yards. Now that includes 2 sacks for 15 yards. But even if you take away those sacks, I mean, still, it's like 20 yards rushing, and his longest was 11 yards. CJ Donaldson, again, 10 yards is his longest. Jaheim White, long of 12, and he's supposed to be their big explosive playmaker in the backfield, while Donaldson's more of the bowling ball. But they did a great job just keeping them in check, and especially because Washington was trying to do like a lot of stuff to the sidelines, like sweeps or screen passes, and the Penn State defense just full of athletes, and they're just able to snuff those things out. Like I think they'll have West Virginia should have their share of success doing that stuff in Big 12 play, but when you're going up against a team like Penn State with their defense, they're one of a handful of teams that can really just snuff those out. Now, they did have better success through the air at times, and somehow converted that 4th and 10, which led to the touchdown. But
that one was annoying.
That was a little annoying, but again, Penn State they had a commanding lead at that point, so I won't be too nitpicky about that. But I think overall a great first game for Tom Allen. I like what he brings to the defense. It's obviously it's not Manny Diaz's level of aggressiveness, but it's also not a passive bend but don't break either. I think he strikes a happy balance. Most important thing is they're not giving up points so easily when teams get into the red zone.
They're cracking down.
That's my big thing. I'll say one criticism I had though, and Abdul Carter had some plays, but man, him and the other linemen, they were a little twitchy today. We must have like a half dozen offsides calls go against us. It seems
West Virginia was definitely messing with their cadence as well, where they were clapping and holding the snap for what felt like 2 seconds. So I think that was a little off. But yeah, I was kind of my takeaways as far as defense goes was that exactly defensive line was good and rush defense, which I think is more important than anything else. But once again, as someone who my predictions for 5 things I know was that Abdul Carter would have at least 16 sacks this year, and I didn't love the Abdul Carter game. It just seemed like he was an athlete playing defensive end, which was, I guess, not too surprising on one hand, but also a little disappointing. West Virginia was certainly giving whatever lineman he was going up against a little bit of help with a tight end chipping him or a running back coming over to help. So I think that certainly plays a part in it. I'm sure Abdul will have his game-wrecking plays as well, but a little disappointed by him, just generally, and just overall as far as the pass rush went. I realize a lot of what West Virginia's offense was mostly running the ball and ball control, and when they did pass, they're certainly getting out quick. It wasn't these elongated, long developing pass plays, but just was hoping for a little bit more break as far as the pass rush goes. But Penn State certainly, they had the opportunities. Yeah. And they had some, like on that 2-point conversion, you had Abdul and I think Tony Rojas, get to the quarterback. Let's kind of go around the
Rojas, man.
I was gonna say, so let's go around the defense. So go. You want to start with Rojas? We can start with Rojas because there's a couple guys I want to get to, but Rojas is one of them.
Yes, he had a heck of a starting debut as a Nittany Lion. Was a highly touted blue chip recruit out of area near me in Fairfax, Virginia. And he put up 5 tackles, had 1.5 tackles for a loss, and he even made such a big hit that Gus Johnson made a Ted Lasso reference, with the Danny Rojas "football is life" quote. So that was nice to see. But of course, like KJ Winston, 12 total tackles, forced a fumble. Jalen Reed, almost a double-digit tackles himself with 9 and a couple pass breakups. And shout out if Smith Vilbert had a nice strip late in the game of West Virginia's quarterback. I think it was Garrett Green who was in off their backup, but then I think it was Denaiden's son who pounced on the fumble. So, it was a good, overall good game. The most important thing is they kept the run game in check, which is, that's West Virginia's bread and butter. They wanted to be able to ground and pound on Penn State, and the defense wasn't allowing that.
Sorry, I'm reading West Virginia fans. They're very mad online. Apparently, after just weeks and weeks and months of making Jerry Sandusky and pedophilia jokes, they're upset that Penn State fans are now celebrating winning a football game. But anywho, yeah, Tony Rojas was very good today. KJ Winston or Kevin Winston, I don't know what he goes by. I see KJ Winston half the time. I see Kevin Winston the other half the time. 12 tackles, especially in the first half, which is all over the field, and same with Jalen Reed. So just as far as safety goes, those are two of the best players, I think in the country, and they did a great job of cleaning up tackles and preventing big plays. So yeah, I think it was like if we had to give grades out, offense, defense, I would say offense, give them an A. Maybe not an A plus as far as just because they weren't able to consistently run the ball, but give them an A. And I think defensively, I don't know, B. I don't want to say B minus. I would
go A minus. I mean, you held them to 12 points, and frankly, you asked me, 9 of those points were gift wrapped by the refs. So
certainly, yeah, no, that's.
I would say now we're on my positions. I mean, I'm kind of thinking out loud here as I'm doing the position grades post that'll go up tomorrow on Black Shoe Diaries. But I mean, maybe D-line would get like a B plus, A minus, just because at times they were a little. I think it's mostly because they were going off sides at times, and Abdul Carter got a little too excited, had some dumb penalties that he picked up. I'm thinking of the late hit, which I think ultimately led to that touchdown drive for West Virginia. But I mean, secondary I would give them probably, A minus, B plus. Linebackers similarly. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard for me to give anything worse than a B plus to the defense. I mean, you held them 12 points. We did what you needed to do. Kept the run game in check.
Kicker. I didn't love that. So Sander Zahadak wins the job after he won the job last year and missed some kicks against West Virginia last year, and once again today, he had an extra point that was very close to looking like it was going to miss, and then he misses a field goal late in the game. Don't love that. You can have the most talented leg on the team or whatever you want to say, but you can't make him in the game. Then you might be in some trouble. So I know Penn State got a kicker from Tulsa. I believe his name is Chase Meyer. So we'll see if anything changes as far as the kicking situation goes. But certainly would have felt better if Zahadak could have converted that one. But once again, small thing right now, but at some point, Penn State will need to make some field goals. So hopefully they get that cleaned up. Anything else? Any other takeaways? We're about to go on 45 minutes. So any other takeaways, Tim, from this game? Once again, I think all in all, a very good afternoon for Penn State and one that I don't know if it necessarily changes I don't care about national perceptions, but Penn State fans' perception as far as I don't know. Like I thought 10-2, you thought 11-1. I think we're still kind of in the. It
does nothing to change my predict. I mean, not that I'm going to change my record prediction, but
yeah,
the way today went, I don't feel any different. Maybe I feel slightly better about my 11-1 prediction.
Yeah,
after seeing how the offense balled out, and the defense still looked pretty solid overall. With the transition to Tom Allen, and you even losing Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac, on the line, they still had some success, especially in the middle of the defensive line, getting some pass rush later in the second half. But overall, satisfying blowout win and on the road at a tough environment in game one. And they, I think what was nice to see was the weather delay did not negatively affect them this time around. We did not get a repeat of the 2017 Michigan State game. So that was good to see. So it's on the Bowling Green.
No, certainly a good day for Penn State, and one that I think people are going to be, obviously more positive about. But yeah, for you picking 11-1, I think for myself picking 10-2, it's kind of twofold. Where this was definitely one of like the three, get over the hump games. It was West Virginia, USC, Wisconsin. Wisconsin, struggling with Western Michigan at home was, a good sign as far as Penn State goes. But
It
curious to
is
see how.
also game one, week
Yeah,
one. So,
for sure.
I'm sure they'll make some improvements by the time Penn State visits them.
But no, definitely all good things for Penn State today. And like you said, on the Bowling Green. And they have, what's setting up to be a nice little stretch here of, Bowling Green, then you got a bye, then you have Kent State. So really 3 weeks to truly clean things up. And even after that, you're hosting Illinois and you're hosting UCLA. So I don't think, Illinois is solid, but I wouldn't be shocked if they weren't necessarily a bowl team. So you have this 4-game stretch before you get into that USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State trio that you can
That's where the season will really
yeah
be determined.
So this, just as far as like the most fun way to start the season, obviously starting with a win is always fun, but winning a game like that and knowing that, hey, these next couple weeks will mostly be about figuring things out, I think is a good feeling. So yeah, Penn State wins 34-12 once again. 1-0. They beat West Virginia just as they did last year. They beat them this year. Any final thoughts? Anything else? I think we're about good.
No, just hopefully we'll see more receivers besides Trey Wallace and Omari Evans step up and make some big time catches. And I'm hopeful that'll happen as we get further into the season and defenses start to focus in on Wallace more, especially.
Certainly. We will see the offense open up more and more. Make sure that you're reading all our posts at blackshoediaries.com. We got tons of stuff today, 3 takeaways, the game recap. We have open threads during the games. And throughout the week, we'll have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, kind of depends upon the day.
The position grades tomorrow.
Position grades from 10 tomorrow. I'll have my random thoughts out. So plenty of stuff on BSD. That's blackshoediaries.com. Make sure you're following on Twitter at BSD Tweet. You can see if you want to follow Tim or I in particular. You can see our Twitter handles down below. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. I was, very happy to see that we got 19 subscribers. I can't say I really thought about how many subscribers we would or wouldn't get from that first episode, but 19 subscribers, that sounds like a win to me. I think that's pretty freaking good, Tim. So
baby
19
steps,
subscribers.
baby steps.
Yes. We'll get to 100 subscribers, and I don't know what I'll do, but I'll do something. I'll do a treat.
You gotta go shirtless for 100 subscribers.
All right. There we go. I will go shirtless for 100 subscribers. Really, really setting the expectations low. I don't know if I should be selling my body for 100 subscribers, but Tim is doing it for me. So thank you, Tim. I will go shirtless once we get 100 subscribers. Thank you for watching. Penn State is 1-0. College football is back. Great weather delay. It's 6:51 now, but we're here. College football is beautiful. Penn State is beautiful. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you guys later.